most of you tell us that the part of the show that we got that you like the best is the Tell Us Something We Don't Know segment. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to tell us something we don't know. John Hood, I'll start with you.
Well, Tom, this is something that one of our viewers knew, but I didn't realize, which is that I have magical powers, but they involve mispronouncing names. A couple of years ago, I kept calling Mark Walker, who was subsequently elected to Congress from the Greensboro area. I kept calling him Bruce Walker. People would complain, why do you keep getting his name wrong, which apparently helped him win. And then last week, I mentioned the state superintendent of public instruction race, the Republican nomination fight, and I mispronounced Mark Johnson's name. I called him Mark Edwards for some reason. I did catch myself, but I did mess it up, and he won. He won surprisingly well. So I'm going to suggest that people who want to get an edge up in a tough race
might there be
suggest
some money under
that I
the table
mention their
here?
name incorrectly.
How do you think John Cooper's going to do on the Democrats?
Dusty, you mean Dusty Cooper? I don't know.
Yeah, Brad, tell us something we don't know.
Well, Tom, CMS in Washington, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, they were very alarmed by the insurance commissioner's letter about the health of the federal exchange here in North Carolina. So 3 weeks ago, they dispatched down senior number 2 level official down to meet with the commissioner of insurance and then meet with some of the healthcare sector folks, Blue Cross Blue Shield and some of the other providers in the exchange, trying to make sure that they avoid a calamity this summer with your major insurers, United, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Aetna pulling out of the exchange here in North Carolina. It's an important story to watch because there are approximately 1 million people in the exchange in North Carolina. All the insurers are having major losses with the exchange right now, and the feds are trying to figure out a solution.
All right. Doug Raymond, tell us something we don't know.
Well, of course, a lot of talk about voter ID. This was the first election it was in place. But there was something else that was in that bill that, from what I'm hearing, caused a lot more problems than presenting an ID. And that was the provision that you could not cast a provisional ballot at a polling place except your own. And what was happening is a lot of people, particularly people that normally early voted and was thinking of that as, well, that's where I voted the last 3 or 4 times. They were going to that early voting site, which may have still been an election day site, but it wasn't theirs, and they were saying, no, you've got to go here. Now, I don't know how many of those didn't bother going, or maybe it was late in the day, and by the time they got over there, but I'd be willing to say there was a lot more problems with that than the actual presenting of a picture ID.
Interesting. Chris, tell us something we don't know.
Well, the polls in the election will start up again. They probably have already started, but I have 2 poll numbers not related to the election, which I think are sort of interesting and go against conventional wisdom. One is President Obama's popularity rating in Gallup just went to 51%, which is exactly the nationwide, which is exactly the approval rating of President Ronald Reagan in election year of 1988, his last term in March. So they have the exact same approval rating, and we always act like Obama is so unpopular around the country. And the second one is about the Affordable Care Act. Without talking about its problems, the Kaiser Family Foundation did a poll at the end of February, and they asked people 4 things. Do you want to repeal the Affordable Care Act entirely? Do you want to repeal it and replace it with a Republican alternative? Do you want to leave it in place and improve it? Or do you want a government single-payer health care plan, in essence, a government-run health care plan that Bernie Sanders is talking about? 24% wanted the government health care plan, 36% wanted the Affordable Care Act to stay in place and be improved. That's 60% of Americans. So the message to me is a lot of people, when they say how unpopular the Affordable Care Act is, don't take into account people on the left who think it doesn't go far enough. So I think it's really interesting polling data.
Well, thank you for watching the After Spin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.